Hey, everybody, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. We have an extraordinary story today of a woman who went from being a stage 4 breast cancer patient to an Ironman triathlete. She just celebrated her 86th birthday. She's coming to us live from Hawaii. You may have seen her in the movie Forks Over Knives, and if you haven't, you've got to see that film. It's been out for 10 years. What are you waiting for? Her name is Dr. Ruth Heidrich. It's so nice to see you again.
Oh, it's great to be here, AJ. Thank you.
It's been a while. I met you in Hawaii when I spoke at the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii. So that was really fun. Are they still doing that?
By Zoom, it's kind of hard to do because we love bringing in these live speakers like John McDougall, T. Colin Campbell, Michael Greger, the stars. It is so great. And you, of course, having people here live. So as soon as the pandemic is over, I'm sure the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii will get back to business.
Well, in the meantime, they have a wonderful YouTube channel where people can actually view the presentations of many of the speakers.
That's right, vsh.org.
Wow. Well, your story is so amazing and so profound. You would think that it would be like on the cover of magazines, especially like when I used to volunteer before the pandemic. I volunteered at a cancer hospital, and you would think like that would be on a flyer.
Yeah, I'm waiting. I'm here, ready.
Yeah, it's amazing because right before we came on live, I asked you about, because you had mentioned in one of the podcasts how your husband wasn't on board. You mentioned you've already outlived 3 of them. Yeah. And it's amazing. And none of your kids will do this. It's just amazing to me with all the success you've had with stage 4 breast cancer and not having to go the traditional route, that people in your own family don't listen to you.
Well, I'm waiting for them to get the motive. It's hard for a lot of people, and I'm responsible because they eat the way that I trained them, and they were long gone from home before I learned any of this from Dr. McDougall. And I don't know that I would have changed without that medical gun to my head, stage 4 cancer. And Dr. McDougall said, if you want to save your life, change your diet. That's powerful motivation. And I'm waiting for my whole family. I've got 2 grandkids who are residents, and they're not taught in medical school anything about nutrition. In fact, I try to get them to watch Forks Over Knives, and I'm not sure, there's a lot of ego involved too, when you think you're right. We're seeing a lot of that right now.
So speaking of Forks Over Knives, how did you get into that film? That must have been very exciting.
I have no idea. I just got an email, and I had been in a video called Eating before that, and I was not sure that how valid it was, and I asked somebody, have you ever heard of somebody doing this? And they said no, but do it anyway. So I thought, yeah, okay. And it turned out that I was in Canada at the time, and so of course it made it a lot easier for the crew to get to Canada, Vancouver, White Rock area, than Hawaii. So they did the whole filming there. The only thing that we missed is I wanted to show people the real rewards for doing all this. And they're right behind me. There are almost 1,000 trophies, gold medals, and the Golden Shoe Award from Runners Magazine. They're great rewards, and not everybody gets rewarded by gold medals, but a lot of people do.
It's amazing. You almost need a museum just to house all your awards.
I don't know what I'm going to do with them all. My gosh, some of them are really valuable. This is just like a third of the room that has
That's
all.
Incredible. So Dr. Ruth, for people that don't know your story, take us back. I think, was it about 40 years ago now?
Yeah, well, 1968, when I was 33 years old, let me set the stage. There are two people in two books that changed my life forever. The first one was Kenneth Cooper, who wrote a book called Aerobics. And in 1968, nobody had ever heard that word before because he had just coined it. He was a major in the Air Force, and this was during the Vietnam War. And his task was to take these 18-year-olds and get them fit. And he did this by making them run. And he saw such powerful health benefits that he wanted to spread the word to everybody. So he published this book, Aerobics. I was getting ready to go on a long flight, and I was at the newsstand. I saw this title, Aerobics. I've got the book right here. And I thought, I wonder what that word means. So I picked it up and read what it promised and bought the book right then, started running the next day. And I have been doing pretty much daily running every day ever since, and got to the point where I was doing marathons. So in 1978, 79, in 1980, 81, I was running marathons and half marathons, and just really thought that, man, I got it made. I figured out how to be really healthy, strong, lean, everything I wanted at age 33. And so after 14 years of running, 1982, I had somebody, I was leaning over at the beach in a bikini, and my aunt pointed at my breast and she said, Ruthie, you've got a lump in your breast. And I thought, oh my God, I had never seen it. It was like it popped up overnight. So I got right into the hospital, and they said, why'd you wait so long to come in? And I said, I've been having mammograms every year for several years, because by this time I was 47. And anyway, it was a whole bunch of false positive mammograms. So they rushed me into surgery to do an excisional biopsy, which means they cut out the whole thing right there. And I said, I still couldn't believe it was cancer. That it was anything to worry about, because 4 out of 5 lumps are benign. They're not cancer. And I was really sure that mine was, but I thought, I want to watch this operation. And he said, no, you don't want to watch. Yes, I do. So I insisted, and he said, okay. And
so you were awake? How were you awake?
Local
Okay.
anesthetic. Yeah. A few injections around the breast, and I didn't feel a thing. And I watched him with his knife cutting deeper, round and round. And by the time he got the whole thing out, it was the size of a golf ball. It was 5 centimeters, about a little over 2 inches.
About this big? This is an actual golf ball. Would you say it was about this big?
A little bigger.
Wow.
From what I recall when I saw it. And they sent it right down to the lab and found out that there were no clear margins. So it was actually bigger than that. And so they said, oh, we've got to start chemo and radiation right away. And I thought, it can't be cancer. So I got a second opinion and a third opinion. They said, there's no doubt it's, pathology. It's infiltrating ductal carcinoma, which is a moderately fast spreading cancer. So I was just devastated. I thought, this can't be, this is devastating. It just really shook me up, and I had trouble with my job. I was a logistics manager at the Air Force Base here. So it was a high stress job as a civilian, female civilian working with military. And I thought, how can this, I couldn't concentrate. And about that time, I was still on medical leave, and I saw the local newspaper, and I saw this little notice, and it said, wanted women with breast cancer to participate in diet research study. And I thought, oh my God. So it's a local phone number, a 262, which is a Kailua extension. And so I got on the phone and got right through to Dr. John McDougall. And I told him what had happened to me. And this was just like 3 or 4 days after the biopsy. He said, get your medical records. I want to talk to you. So that's what I did. And I'm sitting in his office and telling him, I know it's not diet because I've had college level nutrition courses, and I know I really don't eat any red meat, and the chicken, I peel the skin off, and I don't fry things. And my dairy is so low fat that I only have Carnation instant powdered milk. And he said, it's your diet. I said, how can that be? He reached around. By this time I was working on my Ph.D. in psychology. And so he reached around and he pulled open a file drawer and he said, here's the research, the epidemiological studies that show the more animal products, the greater the risk of breast cancer. And conversely, those countries that can't afford it or don't routinely eat it have almost no breast cancer. And further, again, this is way back when there were Vietnam veteran active duty who brought wives back. And within 5 years, the wives had changed their diet from the Vietnamese or whatever to the standard American diet, and they were developing breast cancer. So then he pulled out the animal studies that showed that when they implanted cancer tumor cells onto the bellies of these animals and fed them a high-fat diet, that same thing happened. So he spent about 2 hours with me. Isn't that incredible that a doctor would do that? And I walked out of his office a vegan, a low-fat vegan, and determined that I was going to do this. And of course, when I told my oncologist what I was going to do, he scoffed and he said, this is ridiculous. Diet has nothing to do with breast cancer. You want to know the really ironic part? He died at age 45 of a heart attack. And I remember sitting in his office, and he was following me and trying to get me to do the chemo and radiation. And he had this pot belly. And, we know now that belly fat is the worst kind. So that's another one that I've outlived my oncologist.
Well, you're outliving everybody, your doctors, your husbands.
Yeah, yep. And I don't know what it's going to take to convince the whole world. And fortunately, we've got people like T. Colin Campbell with his new book, The Future of Nutrition. And J. Morris Hicks is saying, if you want to save the planet, change your diet. By the way, J. Morris Hicks was one of our speakers. And Google him and read what he has to say.
Oh, no, he's great. He's been on the show. He just had a birthday too.
Oh, really? Oh, great. Yeah, I missed that one. So anyway, right about that time, I hadn't gone back to work yet. I was still devastated. And I was just listlessly at home. And I turned on the TV, trying to find something to distract me. By the way, I got right back to running. Fortunately, that was the saving grace in terms of stress and keeping up some aerobic fitness. And I saw this ABC Wide World of Sports. And it was in the middle of the Ironman Triathlon. And Chef AJ, this was happening right here in Hawaii. And it started with the 2.4 mile swim right down the road, Waikiki Wharfwater swim, 2.4 miles. And then a 112 mile bike, which is around the perimeter of Oahu. And then you run the Honolulu Marathon. And I was intrigued. I thought, oh my God, I can do the marathon and I can swim. I was 3 years old in Lanikai, and I was swimming every day on the beach. In fact, on December 7th, 1941, I was on the beach watching the attack on not just Pearl Harbor, but 2 other bases that were close to home. And anybody can ride a bike. And I had an old rusty bike in the garage. And so I thought, I'm going to do the Ironman. And I found out that Valerie Silk was the race director, contacted her. and found out that no cancer patient had ever done it, of course, by that time, this is 1982, and no vegan had ever done the Ironman. So I started training for it. And the next year, 1983, I did a half Ironman, got a first place gold medal, which qualified me to get into the Kona Ironman. Not everybody can just sign up and do it. You have to qualify. And so with that qualification there, I was all set. I'm going to show the world, you know. And of course, I crossed the finish line of the Ironman, and I did get a little publicity. We have a local paper called the Midweek, and I was on the cover of it. And I did it, and I thought, just in case people think this is a weird anomaly. Oh, wait a minute. I've got a baseball card here I can show you. This is, yeah, the finish line picture of one of the Ironman triathlons there. My baseball card, by the way, has all the stats, my birth date, the height, weight, and all that. So anyway, it was approached, after I did this, I think the second or third or fourth, Continental Airlines approached me and said, we'd like to sponsor you to do the Ironman. They have one in New Zealand coming up in March, and we'd like to send you there. So I said, oh my gosh. And here are all these fellow competitors doing anything to get a sponsor. And here's one that comes to me. I thought, wow, this is fantastic. So they flew me to Auckland, New Zealand, did the Ironman there, and got a first place in my age group. Came home with the New Zealand Herald. There is only one newspaper in New Zealand. And the front page, 2-inch headlines, Ruth, a woman of iron, and a great 8x10 picture of me. And I brought copies of that home, went to the Continental office and threw one on his desk. He looked down at it and he said, don't they have an Ironman in Japan? And I'm thinking, yeah, but that's in August. I did Kona in October, in March, did New Zealand, and now they want me in August. I thought, yeah, this diet is so powerful. I'm just going to keep on training. And what are they going to do if I don't finish? Fire me? So I said, okay. And I just kept right on training. Got another first place. And of course, the newspaper is a little different. What happened, and a really important point, is the recovery is so fast with this diet. Low fat, vegan, whole food diet. And so the next day after the Japan Ironman, I was there with Julie Moss and Scott Tinley, all of the stars back then of the Ironman Triathlon. And the next day, I wanted to go touring. I wanted to see Japan. And they were all so sore and so tired. They said, are you kidding? I need some recovery time. And I said, well, I'm going to go alone. So I bought a bus ticket, got on a local bus to go to Deer Park, which is one of the most famous tourist attractions there in Japan. And I'm on the bus. It's a small bus, and I'm the only haole, Caucasian, excuse the Hawaiian. And I looked around and I thought, wow, this is incredible. And then I looked in the little bus pocket in front of the seat in front of me with this little rolled up Japanese paper. And I thought, well, it's all in Japanese. I can't read it. And then I thought, they might have a photograph of the Ironman. So I pulled it open and look, oh my God, there's my picture. And I shrieked, I couldn't help it. Oh my God. And I'm pointing, look. And the man across the seat, across the aisle said, what? And I pointed and I said, and he said, I speak English. I'm a professor at Kyoto University. And so I said, wow. And I handed it to him. He read through it, stood up and read the story to everybody on the bus in Japanese. And of course, they all clapped. And I thought, what an example of making lemonade from lemons. Look at, this is like a movie. I couldn't have dreamed up a better script. And the whole point is how powerful this diet is. And so, you know, that's when Dr. McDougall said, you gotta write a book. And I said, John, who's gonna read? I'm nobody. And he said, listen, I tell women this and they won't do it. And maybe they'll listen to you. So that was the first book, A Race for Life. And then that was another example of a publisher coming to me and asking me for the manuscript and the rights to the book. When I turned 70, I was still doing triathlons and still collecting gold medals. And Martin Rowe, the editor, Lantern Books, said, we need you to write a book on senior fitness. And so well, okay. So I started writing it, and there's a lot of work because he made me produce citations for everything I said, you know, about how powerful the diet was. And so it's still available, Senior Fitness, A Race for Life. And then he figured out, let's see, a couple of years, several years ago, I get another call. He's in New York, by the way. And he said, you know, you've been running for almost 45 years at the time. It's been now 50, but he said, we need you to write a book on lifelong running. And so that's how that one came about. And it's just a pretty amazing story about how things happen, and stay curious, be willing, change your diet, try running, try anything new. And so that's pretty much my story.
Well, that is quite a story. You think it would be on the cover of Time magazine. You know, it's interesting, Dr. Ruth, how so many people's journey leads to Dr. McDougall. He has helped so many of us, and so many of us, like Linda Middlesworth, for example, who had thyroid cancer, literally owe our lives to him and our careers.
Yeah, and because of my website with my Ask Dr. Ruth you click on that and you can send me an email. There is Randy Cryle in Dayton, Ohio, actually Beaver Creek, Ohio, who had a thyroid problem. And he had read Born to Run, which is a book by another McDougall, Chris McDougall, Born to Run. And he had my story in there. So Randy had read the story and about how I can reverse cancer with my diet and no chemo and radiation. So he emailed me, and I got an email from him just, well, to back up a little bit, besides thyroid, he was at the age where prostate started giving men trouble. And his was enlarged, his PSA count was going up, and he had a little tumor on his prostate. And he had emailed me, would diet make a difference? And I said, absolutely, because we know prostate cancer.
We're having a little sound problem. Dr. Ruth, your sound went out just for a minute.
Is it back yet?
It's back. Thank you. Just repeat what you said about, okay.
Okay, so he went to his urologist, and they wanted to do surgery and chemo and radiation. And he said, I want to change my diet because this person told me that it's diet related. He said, okay, I'll give you 6 months. Well, 6 months later, he goes back. The tumor is undetectable. He said, I can't believe it. It's gone. The PSA count was down, and his thyroid is normal. So that's one example or another of many, many people that have had success with doing this diet. And of course,
so this diet, when you say this diet, a lot of us know your story, but there might be somebody watching this video that is unfamiliar, that helped you recover from stage 4 cancer without chemotherapy or radiation.
Yeah, the diet is whole food, all plants, definitely. Nothing from an animal, and nothing refined, processed, as much as possible. things like oats are somewhat processed, but beans, lots of beans. Michael Greger with his nutritionfacts.org. Anybody can research anything, whether it's prostate cancer, thyroid cancer, menopause. Oh, that's another thing. I sailed through menopause without a single symptom. No hot flashes, no irritability, no, it was just a non-event. And that is part of what I say in my books about there's so many different effects. In fact, one of the frequent questions I get is, when you changed your diet and you had the stage 4 cancer, bone pain, the liver enzymes sky high, and a tumor in my lung, how soon did you see any difference? And I smile and say, the next morning. And they say, what? And I had been constipated all my life and didn't know it, because doctors had said 3 or 4 times a week is normal for some people. And I was lucky to go 3 or 4 times a week. And here I was, a candidate for colon cancer. Didn't even know that at the time. And so that was why the next morning, when I had a decent bowel movement, I thought, wow, for this alone, is really important for people to know, because you'll see the ads on television for all these, oh my gosh. Yeah, for everything.
And the ads say normal is what's normal for you, not realizing it's not normal, because animals in nature, the minute you feed them, they go outside and poop. Or if they live outside, they're already out. But I'm thinking like my dog, you
Yeah.
eat, you poop.
And babies, the same thing. You feed them and they poop.
So how important is this whole food part of your plant-based diet? Because I know so many people just don't get this oil thing. It's even in the vegan world, it's so controversial. But how important was it to your recovery and your health today to not eat processed and refined oils?
Because the science shows that oils promote cancer, and they sludge the blood and they suppress the immune system. There are just so many reasons why when you take a whole food like corn or olives, oh, that's a big example. You take a whole food like an olive, you take a bushel full and you squeeze all the oil out, you're losing the fiber, you're losing all the nutrients, the vitamins and minerals, and antioxidants, phytoestrogens or whatever. And when you're eating that, you're depriving your body of what it really needs. So that's part of what's wrong with oil. In terms of sugar, sugar is getting the blame for everything now. And of course, drinking a lot of soda is not good, but it's not the sugar that causes or feeds cancer. It's the animal products, the estrogens and the testosterone that you get from animals that promotes cancer.
Yeah, well, thank you, because it seems to be such a sticking point with so many people not really understanding this whole oil thing. Because I've even heard Dr. Furman say recently in a talk that olive oil promotes breast cancer.
Yeah, good. He's gotten on board too. And that's why I wrote Chef, my e-cookbook, which Chef is my acronym for cheap, healthy, easy, fat-free, and fast. And because people say, well, how do you cook without oil? And easy. And there are all kinds of substitutions. You can stir fry with water or balsamic vinegar, or there's so many books out there now about how to cook this way. Brenda Davis and Vasanto Molina both have a series of books with a lot of different recipes. These are 2 registered dietitians. That's another group we've got to get on board, because they're still teaching in nutrition courses in university about getting enough protein, protein this, you need protein for that. It is really sad how people are being misled, thinking that you can't get enough protein with plants. And of course, that's a big, big myth. You've seen that, right?
Absolutely. Well, so Mary's saying, does that mean we should not ever eat whole olives? The thing about olives, though, is that they don't taste very good unless they have a lot of salt.
I don't know, because olives are a high fat food. And so when I went with the McDougall plan, I eliminated all high fat foods, which includes avocado, nuts and seeds, and olives, any of the high fat foods. So uh, olives aren't something that, I don't think they're commonly eaten anyway, or if they are, they're cut up, diced, and added to things.
Right. So people are saying, well, I'd love to know what a typical day of both food and exercise looks like for you.
Well, I'm lucky in that I'm retired and have a lot of discretionary time. And I wake up in the morning and I do physical therapy. I have a set of exercises. Let me back up. In 1998, I was getting ready. I was 64 years old and had done 60. My goal was to do 64 races that year. That because I was racing every weekend. In fact, one weekend I had done 3 races. It was a Friday night race and a Saturday morning race and a Sunday morning race. And another side story, I'd gotten first place in all 3 of them, and it was in the Sunday paper the next day with the results. And I got a call from the sports editor, and he said, I can't believe, because the results were right next to each other, the columns. And he said, I can't believe this. And so he wrote a story about that. But anyway, it was just, let's see, where was I going with that?
Just what you do for daily exercise and what you eat in a
Oh,
day.
after
And they want,
I was getting ready for my next race, and I got hit by a truck while training on my bike. He made a sudden left turn when I was approaching and just shattered my left leg and right hip. And so in the ambulance, I was thinking, my gosh, it's just, this ruined my career. And that's another long story, and part of it's in my books. But anyway, in the hospital bed, I had to figure out, how am I going to retain my fitness? And you know how they have in the orthopedic ward, they have these handlebars here. And so I started doing pull-ups. The nurse walks in and says, what are you doing? And I said, I'm trying to maintain some upper body fitness. And I was doing my exercises with my glutes and with my abs and things like this, trying to do whatever I could do. So I do this every morning when I wake up. I go through this routine that I developed. And then I get out of bed and drink 2 big glasses of water flavored with lemons, live whole lemons. And then I have my cereal, which is whole grains. I had the steel cut oats this morning with some blueberries on it, and a few walnuts, because of the emphasis on getting enough of the omega-3s. And so I'm not as low fat as I was for, well, you know, it's been so many years that I'm not concerned about the cancer recurring because I've eliminated the cause. So I've added flaxseed and chia and hemp. And so I have that as part of, and the whole grains with my breakfast. And then do emails and read newsletters. I try to keep on track of what's happening. And then I have a universal weight machine out on my lanai, and I do weights 3 times a week. And I have a stationary bike, and I don't bike on the roads anymore. I've been hit twice. So that it's too dangerous. Drivers just don't see cyclists. Because that was when I got hit and was sprawled on the road. The driver jumped out of his truck and he said, I never even saw her. How could you not see me? Well, he wasn't looking. So anyway, I do the stationary bike. I also have, lucky enough, I live in a condominium and there's a rooftop swimming pool. And that has been so wonderful because I swim laps in that. So, and then I do water running or whatever. And so I can keep up my exercise and do a mini triathlon every day. And so lunch is, I'm lucky, I get mango or papaya, bananas, and leafy greens. Oh, at breakfast, I have leafy greens too. There are lots of, Brooke Goldner, Dr. Brooke Goldner reversed her lupus, and with an autoimmune disease. Leafy greens are the most highly nutrient density food on the planet. So I make green smoothies now, and I have that with all 3 meals, lots of leafy greens, the bok choy, kale, Brussels sprouts, let me see, what's the, any one of the leaf cabbage, all the different types of cabbage. I'm doing broccoli seed sprouts right now. They're 2 days old, so I'm about to harvest them. And then the afternoon, more exercise. I do nitric oxide workouts where you do squats. Dr. Zach Bush has a 3-minute nitric oxide workout. So in between sitting and doing things around the house, I go out in the lanai and I do 10 squats and 10, it's a different routine and like this. And I've measured my nitric oxide levels. I have these little strips and however pink they are is the degree of nitric oxide that you produced. And sitting, of course, is the, you've heard this, the new smoking. So I try not to sit. And that's why I have these weights right here, and I can do little kind of exercise. I try to keep moving because we are made to move. That's how lymph gets circulated through the body. Otherwise, lymph doesn't have a heart. So it's only the blood that gets pumped around the body. And you have to exercise to move the lymph around. And that's a powerful part of our immune system.
Hey, tell me about these strips. I've never heard. There's strips that can test your nitric oxide. Where do you get them? What are they called? This is news to me.
Amazon, you just write in the search nitric oxide strips, and they come in a little container, and you put a drop. You don't put it in your mouth. You just put a drop of saliva on this little strip, and there's a color gauge on the side. And and after I do one of these 3-minute workouts, in fact, I tested yesterday. The strips don't last forever. They last about 6 months. So, and they're 25 in the type that I got. So I'm trying to use them before they expire. So I did one yesterday just to check and make sure. And sure enough, a dark pink. So getting the nitric oxide, which is really important because that's the vasodilation. That's what expands your blood vessels and gets the blood to the rest of the body, all the way down to the capillaries.
That's incredible. I'm writing this down because I never knew such a thing existed. So I learn something new all the time on this show. So when we knew we were going to have you on, we sent out an email, and people submitted questions in advance. Would you mind answering some of them?
Well, I'd love to. That's my job.
Great. Well, good. Thank you. This is from someone named Faith. She actually wrote a lot of questions because I guess she has some breast cancer in her family. And she wanted to know what lifestyle factors contribute to the greatest risk of breast cancer.
Diet, by far. Diet, animal foods, oils. Those 2 factors are what, I mean, there's such a strong cause and effect ratio between those, whether it's human populations all over the planet. If people haven't heard of the blue zones, please check out the blue zones. They're the 5 areas, and the Okinawan Japanese have the most centenarians, and these are fit, capable, smart centenarians. They reach this age because their lifelong diet has been primarily plants, and of the plants, primarily purple sweet potatoes. In fact, we have a farm on the Big Island that just grows purple sweet potatoes, and I order from them by mail. And I have a big box. It's a 14-pound box of purple sweet potatoes. So that's another one of the cooked foods. I don't eat the potatoes raw, although I have tried it, and you can do it, but I like it raw better, and I think it's definitely more digestible. And so let's see, where else?
I love those potatoes. You can get them shipped in from Hawaii, and there are some ethnic markets where you can get them. They taste like eating cake.
I love them. Yeah, they're really, what I've been doing is I have a crock pot slow cooker. It's the old-fashioned one. There are no dials and gadgets on it. And because the 14-pound one is made of the fingerlings, so I just fill it up with water and some vinegar, balsamic vinegar for flavoring. And I have a week's worth of potatoes ready made. So that makes cooking, and it's part of my chef principle of making the potatoes easy, fast, and you're not tempted to skip them because they're right there ready to eat. And with 14 pounds and living alone, I have to eat them because I don't want them to go bad.
So Gina wants to know, what ratio of raw to cooked do you eat?
Well, I call it high raw because anything that doesn't need to be cooked, I don't. It's a waste of time. I have a stove that has never been used. It's part of my countertop. I do use the microwave, and that's for I mentioned the slow cooker for the potatoes. I love lentils. That's one of my favorite foods. And so I do cook those in the microwave. And so what else do I cook? Well, I use canned mushrooms most of the time because they're so convenient. When I buy the Costco boxes of mushrooms, it's hard for me to get through all of those. I do a lot of raw garlic, raw ginger. What else? Spices and herbs, of course. Let's see, cinnamon, turmeric, green tea. In fact, I'm going to take a sip of my green tea right now. I've been talking a lot, and so I don't want to get dehydrated.
Well, there's actually a question on green tea. If decaf green tea has the same protective benefits as green tea with caffeine.
I think so, because it's the phytonutrients from the green leaf. That's where the health benefits are, not necessarily in the caffeine. So the
Great.
same with coffee.
Perfect. And here's a question. How does weight influence breast cancer risk?
The way you get overweight is by eating animal foods and oils. And so, in fact, I have to eat a lot to maintain my weight. I tried a session of all raw, and I couldn't eat enough. I was losing weight. And that's a happy problem to have that most people would die for, literally die for. So, yeah, it's not a problem, really. It's, yeah.
Nice. Great. I've got a few more questions. I'm good. The ones that were sent in before the other ones. Let's see. It was, does alcohol or caffeine influence breast cancer risk? And how about soy?
Oh boy, yeah. Well, the alcohol, definitely. There's no question there's a correlation. Soy is so misunderstood. The soy it's one of the best examples of how the principle of whole, unrefined plant foods apply to. Eat the whole bean, the soy bean. It is so healthy for preventing not only breast cancer, but it's a good protein source, and it's valuable. Just stay away from the isolated soy powders and the fake meats. The fake soy foods are transitional. If you don't have that medical gun to your head like I did, and just go within hours, go vegan, then if you need to transition, that's okay. But then eventually go to the whole foods. And So what was the middle one? You said,
It's soy, alcohol, caffeine, any effect on breasts.
caffeine. Caffeine, there's mixed results on the research. There's some good, there's some bad. So I'm not sure about the caffeine or the coffee, actually. But the
Right.
soy is clear, the alcohol is clear.
Right. Thank you. And the animal products and the dairy and the oils. So yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
oh, yep.
Jennifer says, do you drink soy milk or any other plant-based milks?
No, and that I think surprises some people. And there's so many recipes that call for them. And the reason I don't is because back in 1982, uh, this was such a radical change in society, and people just there weren't all these products available, and there might have been soy milk at the time, but I sure didn't know about it. And in talking to Dr. McDougall and just studying his books and taking his classes, you don't need soy milk or any of the oat milk or other plant milks. So I don't use them. And again, they're not the whole food, which I'd much rather have. By the way, that applies to juices. I do not juice anything. I want the fiber. I want the whole fruit. It's so much more satisfying. And juicing deprives you, you're cheating yourself. There's another resource that I'm going to mention right now, and that's the book called Fiber Fueled. Dr. Will Bolsowitz. Have you had him on as a guest yet?
You bet. He's terrific. A couple of times. Love him.
Yep. And I took his course on fiber, and it was worth it. I really enjoyed it. So
Yeah.
I love the fiber, so I don't juice. I don't drink juices. I eat the whole food. And variety. I'm a rock god with all my variety because I have the one good thing that came out of the pandemic is our farm link resources, where the poor farmers, the local farmers here, were devastated because all the hotels and restaurants had to close down. And so they have all this produce. And so enterprising people, in fact, a lot of young kids, make a job of going out to the farms, getting the produce and delivering it directly to my front door. All these fresh veggies, including things like that you've never heard of, watermelon radish. Have you?
I love them. They're beautiful.
Oh, you have heard of them. Okay.
Yeah, they're really pretty. They look.
I got some. Yeah, they're big and they're white on the outside and watermelon color on the inside. So that was a novelty that I found out thanks to the pandemic and have every night raw. And okra, I discovered from a local farmer. I love okra, and you can eat that raw. And let's see, beets, different varieties of beets, the golden beets. It's just incredible what and the different leafy greens, of course. My fridge is, you open the door and you see it's like 90% leafy greens.
Wow. Sharon wants to know what you put in your smoothies.
Leafy greens. What else? Let me see. I've got to think. What else? It's mostly water, and I pour that over. Oh, for the morning leafy greens, I add 4 prunes. I eat a total of 9 prunes every day because the research showed that prunes help keep you strong bones. And the 4 prunes in the smoothie just sweetens it up. It's, I think, far healthier than using dates. And for people who might have a problem with the taste of green beans, green leafy greens, until your taste buds change, in 3 days, they've got to turn over and they start liking all these foods. That's something people have trouble understanding when they make the change. They say, oh, I don't like leaf greens. I don't like kale. I love my meat. Well, I keep hearing this, and it reverses very quickly. You just got to do it. So that's, you know,
So
it's
Richard
not a
has a
problem.
question. Richard has a question about knees. I just saw it, and here it is. He goes, I love this story. I currently have a swollen knee from an injury, and I'm a runner. You mentioned physical therapy. Have you ever had to deal with swollen knees?
Yes, I have. Having been hit by a truck twice, yeah, it's caused knee damage. I've had breast implants that leaked. That's a whole another issue that deserves a lot of attention. These silicone breast implants cause problems, and they can attack the joint cartilage. And so you got to find out what the cause, what's aggravating the knee, why it's swollen. And so check it out and find out what's going on. And
Yeah.
physical therapy is critical.
Yeah, I love physical therapy. Are you still in touch with Dr. McDougall?
Yes, yes, I am. When I started having the problems with the breast implants, I we started emailing and back and forth, and then I got to talk to him recently. Well, let's see, how long has it been? Anyway, yeah, definitely still in touch with him.
Right. I don't know if this question's too personal from Suzanne. I would like to know her height and weight, or maybe waist. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's not too personal at all. I'm 5'6". I weigh 105 pounds, and my waist is 26 inches.
Wow, that's amazing. You are amazing. You should be on the cover of AARP.
Ah, yeah. Well, and PBS has the Boomer series too of the athletes. That reminds me of the Senior Olympics. That was a boon for people who are still want to be competitive, and you don't have to be winning gold medals. You just get out there and exercise with a bunch of people your age, 50 and above, and it is so much fun. I went to the National Senior Olympics in 1997 and was the only person from Hawaii. And they have the parade of athletes, just like the real Olympics, where each state gathers all their competitors. And so California had dozens, Arizona, dozens, and every state had a whole bunch. And I was from Hawaii, and they give the person, the first person they see, a big sign that has their state. And you go into the arena and you march around, and they do it alphabetically. So they saw me, they gave me the Hawaii sign, and I'm looking for other Hawaii people. There are none. So I'm right between, what is it, Georgia and Indiana, whatever. And I'm the only one from Hawaii. So as we march around, and they have spaces in between each of the states. So I'm the only sole competitor from a state, and the standing ovation was just mind-boggling. I had tears in my eyes. It was one of those peak moments, just like being on that bus in Japan, thinking, my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. And there are reporters walking backwards as I'm going through, wondering if they're going to trip and fall because they're filming me and asking me questions. And it was just a fantastic experience. So staying curious, being open to change, and take chances, take risks, it's definitely worth it.
That's amazing. You should have your own show, Dr. Ruth. Rebecca wants to know, why are prunes good for the bones?
They're not sure because the research has been done on dates and raisins. And when they do the tests, they found that prunes worked. And I don't know whether they've done enough analysis to find out what makes these fruits different, but something does apparently. So that's why, and I like prunes.
That's great. Well, you're a runner, so prunes make you run.
Yep.
I'm guessing you're not on any medication, and you probably didn't take any even when you were first diagnosed.
No, no meds, perfect blood pressure. I do have a sphygmomanometer, blood pressure measurement, and I keep track of it. And I've gotten as low as 90/60 when I'm calm and relaxed. You put me in a stress environment and it goes up, which it should, because like right now, I'm turned on, so my blood pressure is going to be up. But when I slow down, I do some meditation every night and the blood pressure goes down. And as long as you can get it down when you're calm, the arteries are clean, that there's no plaque. And it's the obstruction, the plaque that builds up from the animal foods that causes high blood pressure. So reversible. Same with diabetes. Type 2 diabetes reversible. Type 1 diabetes, they know, is caused from cow's milk, giving it to kids. You don't have to do tonsillectomies anymore because they're usually caused by feeding cow's milk to young kids. I mean, there's so many ways that we are screwing up with our diets. It's really sad for kids. Obesity.
What is the older population like in Hawaii now? Are they fairly healthy? What are you seeing?
Well, of all the states, Hawaii and Colorado are both up there with healthy. But in Hawaii, it's because of our high immigration Japanese who were brought here way back in the 1800s to work in the cane fields. And they brought their diets with them. And to the extent that they stick with the Japanese diet, lots of rice and vegetables. For breakfast, rice and vegetables, lunch and dinner. Dr. McDougall found this out when he was a plantation doctor on the Big Island. And that was part of what made him aware of the importance of diet, because he could see 3 generations of Japanese and Filipino, because as a doctor there, plantation, he had the care of all of them, and found out that if they stuck to the original Asian diet, their grandpa was healthy, their grandma was healthy, and the grandkids were fat and diabetic. And so it was real clear that Dr. McDougall was onto something. And so that was a fortunate experience for him. He stayed curious and wanted to know what was going on and figured it out.
Right. How many prunes, they want to know, do you put in your smoothie?
4. And I use the others, I just add to the breakfast because I like to chew as much as chewing is really important. You got to keep these jaw bones strong, keep your teeth strong. Teeth have little tiny ligaments that attach the teeth to the gums, and they need exercise too. Another reason why I don't juice. So little tidbit there, trivia.
What time do you stop eating for the day?
I am so busy these days that my schedule keeps getting pushed back further and further and further. I used to try to be done by 5, and that's getting harder to do. I need a little more discipline. I need to stop whatever I'm doing, get off the email, stop the exercise, and start preparing my supper. It's fairly elaborate because of all the work that goes into a whole food diet. So I like when I also have a big bowl of popcorn. That's my dessert at the end. And so like last night, I was still eating the popcorn at 6:30. And I thought, I got to start preparation for my dinner a little earlier. So I try to stop by 6 and have at least 12 hours, 13, 14 hours in between, let the GI system rest.
It's 10 o'clock.
Do you have any friends, or have you outlived all of them?
Oh my gosh. Fortunately for the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii, we have a cohort of dedicated people. Lorraine Sakaguchi, Jim Thompson, Carol Jessewick. We've got 2 MDs, Ermina Van Dyken and Grace Chen O'Neill. These are lifesavers. I'm probably skipping some. Sorry. Matt Gita, our board of directors, and we used to have wonderful board meetings, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Of course, that had to stop, so we do them by Zoom, which is a poor substitute, but it's better than nothing. So as long as I have the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii, I have dear, sweet friends. And Lonnie Locke is another one. She and I have been going to the mini med school. The University of Hawaii Med School runs a mini med school for seniors. And that's a wonderful resource that she and I have really enjoyed. So Saturday mornings, we get lectures from the professors, and we keep trying to push, get medicine moving forward. Michael Clapper's campaign to get the medical students knowledgeable about diet. So we're trying through the medical mini med school to try to say, get one of these doctors talk about nutrition. And it's like so many times, like when I was doing interviews for in New Zealand and Japan, I talk about diet, but then I read the report, like that New Zealand newspaper, the front page. I talked about diet probably over half the time, and there was one sentence in the whole story about diet. And it's like the reporters just ignore it, think it's not important. And so we need to get the focus more on the power of diet to reverse the high blood pressure, the diabetes, the obesity. We got to get our kids healthy, because we're finding now that parents are burying their children. It's really sad.
Yeah. Well, people are saying you look beautiful and that your skin is beautiful. This mini medical school sounds really interesting. Maybe you can introduce me to them. It sounds like it'd be a great guest for the show.
Well, they're not vegan oriented.
Really?
Really, yeah. Dr. Terry Shintani is the Waianae diet, trying to get Hawaiians to change. There's a lot of obesity in the local Hawaiian population, trying to get them to get off fish. And, that's a main food. And so I have suggested get Dr. Shintani as a lecturer in the mini med school. And you know what the answer is? Oh, he's too busy. I know that he would love to give a lecture there. So that's what's happening with the mini med school. You do have the specialists, you have the psychiatrists, the rheumatologists. We even had a dentist last Saturday. It's like diet doesn't exist in there. We've got this silo effect with each one of these medical specialists, and they just study their field, and it is very narrow, and there's very little crosstalk between the different specialties. It's unfortunate, but and there is a new, fairly small but growing field of geriatrics, specializing in older people, and a geriatrician needs to get through that silo bond, because by the time they are seeing patients, there are multifactorial factors in their health, and you've got to address them all. And most of them have to do with diet. The other half, Dr. Patricia Blanchette is a doctor who specializes in geriatrics. And I was interviewing her on a show once, and she said, everything we used to think was due to aging is actually due to disease and disuse. And the light went on in my head. Disease is diet. Disuse is exercise. And you'd think that everybody would jump on that bandwagon and get busy with the disease. It's bankrupting our Medicare system, and so needless that heart attacks are reversible, preventable. Same with diabetes, all these. It's pretty frustrating for me to see what's going on and not get this information out to people and have them believe it.
Are there a lot of assisted livings or nursing homes in Hawaii?
I don't know the count. There are some, definitely. And you can't get vegan food there. You can get some vegetarian, And the few people I know who have been in them have really had to have the food brought in from the outside. There is a nice one that if I get tired of living alone and want to go to one of these independent assisted living, you know, where they do all the cooking, I can't do it because I'd end up having to do all the cooking and shopping as it is. I've talked to the dietitian and she says, oh, they won't eat it. You know, they want their meat, they want their lobster, they want their mac cheese. It's pretty frustrating, especially with the pandemic. What we know now is that if you're a healthy, low-fat vegan, your odds of getting it are much, much lower. I have never had a flu shot. I've never had the flu. You know, go figure, as they say. Yeah.
Well, you must be doing something right. They should have you at least go to these assisted livings and nursing homes and speak. And maybe, I don't know, is it too late to inspire people that are already in those places?
Oh, it's the ones that are convinced have trouble with the people who buy the food. The same with the school lunch program. That the government and their subsidies and their silly rules that are run by the people in the business, the meat and dairy business, make the rules. And so our school lunches mandate that children be given dairy, cow milk with their meals. They have to have a protein, you know, not realizing there's plenty of protein in plants. And they think they have to have chicken, fish, or beef in the school lunch program. And we've testified to the legislature and doesn't do it. You know what we're up against. We're not winning at all. It's pretty sad.
I think you should start your own YouTube channel and, you know, show us what you eat, how you exercise. I think people would love to see it.
I don't have time.
That's true. Just curious, do you include sugar and salt in your diet or flour,
No.
or is it mostly just whole?
No sugar, no salt. Haven't had any in no oil. I haven't had those 3 in my house since 1982. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you really inspire me, Dr. Ruth, because I'm not taking age. I turned 60 last year during the pandemic, and I'm not taking aging very well. But if I can look like you and think like you and be like you, you really are an inspiration. Even the breast cancer notwithstanding, just that you're aging so beautifully and you're sharp as a tack and you look amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Exercise, dementia is, again, the blue zones. These 100-year-old people have no dementia. They stay sharp, and it's the diet, and then their exercise is not exercise the way we know it. They don't go to gyms. They don't have universals like I do because they are out in the fields and they're harvesting foods and they're working all the time. So, and they have to, it's a whole different culture. Those 5 different blue zones. Read about them.
The lifestyle medicine doctor that was on the show yesterday said exercise reduces your risk of Alzheimer's by 45%.
Sure, and that's where diet is important, because you exercise and it gets the blood to the brain, but it's got to be healthy blood. And so that's why, it still comes back to diet. But exercise, you got to move that healthy blood around. Otherwise, it sits and pools and clots and cause embolisms, pulmonary embolisms. It can cause varicose veins. What else? It deprives your organs of the needed blood to circulate and function. It's just so important.
Yeah, all the organs, even the ones down there.
Oh, that's why another one of my books, there's that health or sex expert, Dr. Ruth Heidrich. She's still around. She's been around for years. Little 4 foot something, squatty lady who says sex is good. And because of my Dr. Ruth, people have confused me thinking that I was the one that they right to with their sexual problems. And I got enough of these, and I know what causes erectile dysfunction. It's the plugging of that tiniest little artery, the size of a head of a pin. And you get any clogging there, and guess what? And I knew that Dr. Neil Barnard, I was on stage with him back in 1990 or maybe 88. And I was waiting, I was the speaker next after him. So I was in the wings listening. And he was talking about how he was addressing a medical student class. And they were not paying much attention and doodling and whispering. And he threw out this statistic: by the age of 40% of males are impotent. And all of a sudden, all the heads went up and he had their attention. And I thought, just now, I mean, recently, compared many years later, I need to write another book. And it's how to prevent, cure, and reverse ED. And so for those people who think I'm the other Dr. Ruth, and it affects women as well. Women have erectile dysfunction, and you read my book on that, you'll see how clear it is that it really makes a difference. The World Health Organization, an organization as that, says we all deserve a healthy sex life. So that, and I quote them. So.
Well, absolutely. I think that's a perfect place to end. Well, thank you so much for all you do to inspire people. I think anybody that has breast cancer should really talk to you before they go down that traditional route, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because there is so much money to be made in women who are devastated by that diagnosis. They want to do anything. And even if they get enlightened, they're fighting resistance from their families. They're saying, oh, you got to do the chemo. You'll die if you don't do the radiation. And the doctors that, like the one, my oncologist said, oh, diet has nothing to do with breast cancer. That's
and we see that where that got him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yep.
That's very sad. Pat wants to know, are you still doing any Ironmans?
No, it takes a tremendous amount of training. It is a full-time job to be competitive, and I don't want to do a half-assed performance. The last time I did one, I was on top, and you can't stay on top and do everything else you want to do. My time is so limited that I have to prioritize which is more important, the hours of training or my next book, interviews like this. There are not enough hours in the day for me and for a lot of people who have a mission of trying to get this information out, like you. You're doing a lot of work. So if you were to spend 40 hours competing for an Ironman, what would have to go? And you make the choice there. We have our priorities. I've done enough Ironman triathlons and lots of I've done 67 marathons, Boston, Moscow marathon, trail marathons, and Honolulu a bunch of times. So, I don't have to keep doing that to make my point.
Right. And plus the fact, if you want any more trophies, there's no place to put them.
I need another room.
Absolutely. Well, you are terrific. It was so great connecting with you again. Thank you so much. You are just a force to be reckoned with, and I appreciate everything you do and what you stand for. And I love that that all roads seem to lead to Dr. McDougall, don't they?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's a real treasure.
It was wonderful catching up with you, Dr. Ruth. And thanks to all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow when I'll be interviewing another world-class athlete named Karen Asp, who's also a journalist writing for publications like The Beat and Forks Over Knives. Say hello to everyone at the VSH for me.
Oh, will do. Thank you.
Okay. Aloha. Bye.
Yeah.